right, guys, so tomorrow we get Tesla's highly anticipated earnings, and I did a deep dive to take a review of really what happened in the past several quarters to see if we can have an inference on what will happen tomorrow after the close. The past 10 years of Tesla earnings have obviously been extremely volatile, but it's really a coin toss as to, is the market going to respond favorably, meaning positively, will it go up, or negatively, meaning will it go down? Around 45 to 50% of the time, Tesla will gap up or be seen positively afterward, and 50 to 55% of the time, it will be seen negatively. Historically, consensus has always kind of favored a higher EPS or earnings per share. Tesla tends to have kind of a reaction immediately when giving the earnings, and then during the conference call and the questions is when it really starts to make its move either up or down. That tends to go based on the forward guidance. Remember, during these earnings calls, not only are people wondering how the business did the last quarter, but they really want to know is what are the expectations for the next quarter, the next year, etc. moving forward. Now, from a directional probability, during the last 12 quarters or last like 3 years or so, Tesla has finished higher after earnings announcement 5 times and lower 7 times. So again, that completely coincides with that 45 to 50% of the time that it is going to go up. As of right now, the options market is pricing in around a 6% move either up or down following this announcement, which is actually less than usual. It usually is around a 9% move either up or down. I don't know if that's good or bad, just that's what the option market is telling us right now. Q2 deliveries were already released last week and the market responded favorably, but since that came out, Tesla's basically gone down every day since. At this point, it's dropped from a near high of $423 per share from that earnings release or that quarterly delivery release number. As of yesterday, $368. So quite a bit of a drop, around a $60 per share drop since a very positive earnings. Now, most of that drop was after they had released that they delivered 480,000 vehicles with a 25% increase year over year of that vehicle delivery. China's BYD, which is their electric vehicle, actually released around 557,000 electric vehicles, thus beating Tesla's delivery number. Now, the good thing about Tesla is it did produce 451,000, but actually delivered 481,000. So they don't have a supply chain or rather a supply glut, like, think of like Peloton. So that's pretty bullish that we have deliveries are outpacing production at this point in time. That still keeps the stock, going up. Another bullish case is that we actually have the Megapack and the Powerwall have also both shown aggressive, strong growth in those sectors. And the energy section of Tesla is continuing to grow, accounting for about 1.1 billion of the profit, whereas we do have around 3 billion of the profit coming from electric vehicle deliveries, but still a rather sizable segment constituting around 25% of its profit margins. And not only that, the energy sector has about a 29% profit margin in the sector alone. So that's pretty good numbers. Now, some other things that are rather bullish on it is that FSD is scaling out. It's doing quite well in places like Texas where it's being like demoed out. But the question that is likely going to hurt it is, what is the timeline for FSD, the full self-driving? And honestly, we're probably not going to get any good answers on that because that is going to be a massive regulatory hurdle that they will have to overcome to allow this to occur in all 50 states. But otherwise, that scaling Optimus, scaling the Cybercab, which is suggested to be around a $30,000 starting point, Elon has come out and said that no, he thinks he can get it closer to $25,000. That again will be a bullish opportunity because that with a lower price point will mean more individuals will be able to get in on the ground floor on that. Now, the bearish case on Tesla is that they do have around a $25 billion capital expenditure and they have around $45 billion in cash and cash equivalents. So that doesn't leave them too much of a leash for that, but there are some other things going for them. So investors they're going to want to see, is there progress on the Cybercab? Is there progress on the FSD and the potential rollout with that timeline? Going to wonder about the Optimus, the AI compute, XAI, etc. And then also follow up with the Terafab and see if anything's going from there. Remember, the Terafab is the $119 billion joint venture project consuming XAI, Tesla, and SpaceX. Now, they do have strong deliveries, sure. But prediction markets like Kalshi are actually suggesting that deliveries are kind of half the battle. That news is already out. It's already been digested. People are wondering about the Powerwall, they're wondering about Grok, and they're wondering about, is there going to be a release of the Roadster, which is anticipated to come and has been pushed back to 2027, maybe 2028. That both of those could hurt it. And then the real big one that is likely everyone's gonna keep their ears pierced out for is a merger. Now, Kalshi sets this at a prediction of around 33% that the merger will be discussed, or a potential merger between SpaceX and Tesla. Now, I think that this is absolutely going to be asked by someone. Now, whether he fesses up and mentions it beforehand, that remains to be seen. Again, we'll find out tomorrow. Here's where things get interesting. Now, from a probabilistic standpoint, will he mention a merger before being asked? Probably not. He would likely not want the positive news of Tesla's, their production, their deliveries, and all the things they're building there clouded by a news story that suggests this merger acquisition deal. Rather, is going to wait until the news cycle kind of calms down, a little bit more of the float on SpaceX opens up, and then they can discuss that merger. However, others, and many others, and even prominent individuals such as Wedbush and Morgan Stanley are suggesting that although it's may not likely that it's going to happen immediately, they do believe that it's going to happen in 2027, and that is the merger. And in many ways, it does make sense. He is sharing resources already between these companies, such as with the TerraFab project. He could have engineers cross-pollinate between these projects. And from a logistics standpoint, it could be less difficulty or incongruency from him managing his time better, just having it all into one branch. Tesla stock and SpaceX stock right now seem to be pretty much going in unison. Now, these companies, they are going to be vertically integrated. That is something people are calling it the Berkshire Hathaway of AI and a mega cap conglomerate. All of these could potentially be true. But one thing that stuck out to me was in the S1 filing, an amended S1 filing with SpaceX said, may issue a significant amount of equity in connection with future transactions. That opens the door that they could potentially acquire Tesla in an all stock, all equity transaction. Now, then the question comes, would Tesla acquire SpaceX or would SpaceX acquire Tesla? Now, the other thing is, so I did a little deep dive in. Typically what would happen is if they do this acquisition, Tesla or SpaceX is going to have to acquire Tesla, which means it would be a dilution event for SpaceX. They would have to dilute those shares in order to acquire Tesla, and then they would have to make a premium valuable enough for Tesla and Tesla shareholders to be interested to merge this conglomerate. When those mergers happen, they tend to come at about a 20 to 30% premium. Even if they announced it tomorrow, which I want to be clear, I just don't see it happening. This is a regulatory hurdle that would likely take them quite a while to get through, and it would likely be something that would take a considerable amount of time before anything could get approved. But I want to know in the comments, let me know, do you think that there's going to be an acquisition? Do you think that it's going to happen soon? Or rather, what do you think is going to come out of these earnings? Let me know in the comments below. Everybody have a wonderful day. Peace and love.